Hello and welcome back. This is going to be a lore reading. We're outside of camp outside of Denver. Let's see what we've learned. Creatures. Giant spider. Corrupted spiders are giant arachnids that originally grew in the depths of the deep roads, feeding on numerous species of large bats. When the deep roads were lost to the darkspawn, they began to feed on the numerous genlocks, and their numbers grew exponentially, as did their size. The darkspawn taint has become a permanent part of their system, passing on to their progeny. This has had the effect of increasing their size abnormally, as well as their aggressiveness. Some corrupted spiders have made their lairs in surface forests, but most remain underground, close to their blight-tainted meals. This is Dragon. High Dragon. A fully mature adult female dragon is a high dragon, a great monster of legend, the rarest of all dragonkind. These dragons hollow out massive lairs for themselves, for they need space to house their harem of drakes as well as their eggs and dragonlings. The high dragons are seldom seen. They spend most of their time sleeping and mating, living off the prey their drakes bring back. But once every 100 years or so, the high dragon prepares for clutching by emerging from her lair and taking wing. She will fly far and wide, eating hundreds of animals, most often livestock, over the course of a few weeks, leaving smoldering devastation in her wake. She then returns to her lair here to lay her eggs and will not appear in the skies again for another century. Seems like it could have that be a way of measuring time in an area. Though also one you'd probably want to stop being able to use at some point, unless you want to stop the animal from killing all your livestock and devastating lands. Alright. Derthaman, Keeper of Secrets. The twins Felindin and Derthaman are the eldest children of Elganon, the All-Father, and Mithal, the Protector. The brothers were inseparable from the moment of their conception, known for their great love for each other. This is why we often speak of Felindin in one breath and Derthaman in the next, for they cannot bear to be apart, not even in our tales. When the world was young, the gods often walked the earth, and Felindin and Derthaman were no exception. Both were delighted by the many wonders of the earth. They played with the animals, whispered to the trees, and bathed in the lakes and streams. Their days were filled with bliss, and they did not know sorrow. And then one day, while passing through the forest, Felindin and Derthaman came upon an old and sickly deer resting by a tree. "Why do you sit still, little sister?" asked Felindin. "Play with us," said Derthaman. "Alas," spoke the deer, "I cannot. I am old, and although I wish to go to my rest, my legs can no longer carry me." Taking pity on the deer, Felindin gathered her up into his arms and carried her the rest of the way beyond the vale. Derthaman tried to follow them, but the shifting grey path beyond the vale would not let him. Separated for the first time from Felindin, Derthaman wandered aimlessly until he came across two ravens. "You are lost, and soon you will fade," the raven named Fear said to Derthaman. "Your brother has abandoned you." He no longer loves you," said the other, named Deceit. "I am not lost, and Felindin has not abandoned me," replied Derthaman. He subdued the ravens and bade them take him to Felindin. This they did, for they had been defeated and were now bound to Derthaman's service. When Derthaman followed Felindin, he found also the deer, who was once again light on her feet, for her spirit was released from her weakened body. Both Felindin and Derthaman rejoiced to see this. Felindin vowed that he would remain to carry all the dead to their place beyond, just as he did the deer, and Derthaman stayed with him, for the twins cannot bear to be apart. From the story of Felindin and Derthaman, as told by Ishael, keeper of the Ralaferan clan of Dalish Elves. The Eonar. Second. When the Imperium occupied the area that is present-day Ferelden, they had two sites dedicated to magical experimentation at the extreme ends of the Imperial Highway. The southern one was the fortress Ostgar, which looked out over the Kokari Wilds. The northern one was Eonar, although the exact location is now a secret known only to a handful of Templars. Whatever it was the Templars were trying to discover in Aonar, their work was never completed. The fortress was overrun by the disciples of Andraste upon hearing the news of her death. According to legend, it was a massacre, eerily silent, for the invaders caught the mages while all but one of them were in the Fade. The site was left structurally sound but spiritually damaged. Possibly because of this, the Chantry chose to put it to use as a prison. Cursed Maleficarum and apostates are held in the confines of Aonar. Those who have powerful connections to the Fade, particularly to demons, will inevitably attract something across the veil, making the guilty somewhat easier to tell apart from the innocent. From Of Fire Circles and Templars, A History of Magic in the Chantry by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. Templars, often portrayed as stoic and grim, the Order of Templars was created as the martial arm of the Chantry, armed with the ability to dispel and resist magic. In addition to their formidable combat talents, the Templars are uniquely qualified to act as both a foil for apostates, mages who refuse to submit to the authority of the Circle, and a first line of defense against the dark powers of blood mages and abominations. While mages often resist Templars as symbols of the Chantry's control over magic, the people of Theta see them as saviors and holy warriors, champions of all that is good, armed with piety enough to protect the world from the ravages of foul magic. In reality, Chantry's military arm looks first for skilled warriors with unshakable faith in the Maker, with flawless moral center as their secondary concern. Templars must carry out their duty with emotional distance, and the Order of Templars prefers soldiers with religious fervor and absolute loyalty over paragons of virtue who might question orders when it comes time to make difficult choices. The Templars' power derives from the substance lyrium, a mineral believed to be the raw element of creation. While mages use lyrium in their arcane spells and rituals, Templars ingest the primordial mineral to enhance their abilities to resist and dispel magic. Lyrium use is regulated by the Chantry, but some Templars suffer from lyrium addiction, the effects of which include paranoia, obsession, and dementia. Templars knowingly submit themselves to this treatment in service of the Order and the Maker. In this sense of ruthless It is this sense of ruthless piety that frightens most mages when they draw the Templars' attention. When the Templars are sent to eliminate a possible blood mage, there is no reasoning with them. If the Templars are prepared, the mage's magic will be all but useless. Driven by their faith, the Templars are one of the most feared and respected forces in Thedas, patterns with informed by Halden, first enchanter of Starkhaven. 880 blessed. Let's see what we have here. The long walk. When our people left Tevinter, we had nothing except the knowledge that for the first time in countless centuries we were free. Tevinter still existed when they did their long walk. In fact, was probably not even. It wasn't during the period when they didn't have slavery either. But then again, I remember that Tevinter was kind of known to have been larger at that point, so they still might have thought of some of the now very loosely controlled, well, not even controlled anymore, recently freed areas as being part of Tevinter. It was Shartan's dream that one day we would have our own homeland where we could live as we choose. After the long struggle that claimed the lives of many, even Shartan himself, we were granted the Dales, and though the Dales were to the south of the land of Orlais, and a long way off from Tevinter, it mattered little. We were going home, and so we walked. We called our journey the Long Walk, for that was what it was. We walked with what little we had on our backs. Some walked without shoes, for they had none. Whole families, women with infants, the old and young alike, all made their way across the land on foot. And if one of our people could no longer walk, we carried him, or sometimes we left him behind. Many perished along the way. Some died of exhaustion. Others simply gave up and fell by the wayside. A great number were set upon by human bandits, even though we had few possessions. Along the way, a growing number began to bemoan the decision to leave Tevinter. At least in Devinter, they said, we had food and water and shelter. What do we have here? Nothing but open sky and the prospect of never-ending road ahead. Some turned back towards Devinter, but most of us continued walking. Yeah, it seems like very much a similar story to the Exodus from the Bible, the Torah. And the gods rewarded those of us who did not waver, for by bringing us to the Dales, our people called the new city Halam Sharal, the end of the journey, and for a time it was home, as ruled by Gishel, keeper of Relafaren clan, the Dalish elves. Theda's calendar. For most good folk, the details of the calendar have little purpose. It is useful only for telling them when the summer day festival will be held, when the snows are expected to begin, and when the harvest must be completed. The naming of the years are a matter for historians and taxmen, and few, if pressed, could even tell you the reason that our current age is named after dragons. Yeah, that seems about accurate. You know, if you're just working the farms, you don't necessarily care what year it is. It's more like, oh, how close is, harvest time? What's the next holiday? So on and so forth. It is 930 Dragon Age, the 13th year of the 9th age. 30th years of the 9th age since the crowning of Chantry's first divine. Each age is exactly 100 years. With the next age's name chosen in the 99th year. The scholars in Valrayo advise the Chantry of importance that in the 99th year, and the Chantry authorities pore over the research for months before Divine announces the name of the imminent age. The name is said to be an omen of what is to come and what the people of Thedas will face in the next 100 years. I wonder why they haven't had a plenty age or a good harvest age yet, because they portend good things. The current age was not meant to be the Dragon Age. Throughout the last months of the Blessed Age, Chantry was preparing to declare the Sun Age, named for the symbol of the Orlesian Empire, which at the time sprawled over much of southern Thedas, and controlled both Ferelden and what is now Navarra. It was to be a celebration of the Orlesian imperial glory. That sounds like a much more realistic way of naming an age. They're in the place, so they kind of want to curry favor with local rulers. But as the rebellion in Ferelden reached a head and the Battle of River Dane was about to begin, a peculiar event occurred, a rampage. The rising of dreaded high dragon. Dragons have been thought practically extinct since the days of the Navarran dragon hunts. And they say that to see this great beast rise from the frostbacks, that's typo, was both majestic and terrifying. As the rampage began, the high dragon decimated the countryside in its search for food. The elderly divine Faustine II abruptly declared the Dragon Age. Some say the divine was declaring support for Orlais in the battle against Ferelden, since the dragon is an element of the Tufael family heraldry of King Megarin, the so-called Super King of Ferelden. Not sure that quite works, because you're naming an age after oh wait, no. Usurper King, that would be the one who was ruling Ferelden, basically as a puppet state of Orlais. Sorry. Be that as it may, the High Dragon's rampage turned towards the Orlesian side of the Frostback Mountains, killing hundreds and sending thousands more fleeing to the northern coast. The Ferelden rebels won the Battle of River Dane, ultimately securing their independence. Many think that the Dragon Age will come to represent a time of violent and dramatic change for all of Thedas. It remains to be seen. From the studious theologian by Brother Genetivi, Chantry Scholar, 925 Dragon. Denerim. When anyone speaks in Ferelden of going to the city, they invariably mean Denerim. There is no other place in the kingdom which rivals it, not in size, population, wealth, or importance. It is the seat of the Theron family, the capital of Ferelden, the largest seaport, and, by ancient tradition, the meeting place of the Landsmeet. As well, Denerim is seen as the birthplace of Andraste, one of them, anyways, as several other sites claim to have been the prophet's early home, including Jader in Orlais. The Chantry takes no stance on which site's claim is valid. That's surprising with all the centuries of political machinations that they haven't declared one to be official. But it is well known that Andraste was Ferelden by birth. Ferelden didn't exist at the time, but anyway. When visiting the pilgrimage site in Denerim, it is inadvisable to mention Jader at all. The rest of the city rests at the foot of Dragon's Peak, a solitary mountain scarred by ancient lava flows. During Andraste's lifetime, it reputedly filled the sky with a great column of black ash and sent burning rock raining down as far as the free marches, but is now considered extinct. Some believe it merely sleeps, and will again darken the skies with ash and fire when the last Ferelden king dies, but this is highly unlikely. Well, we have the last rightful Ferelden king with us. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, the Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genetivi. Navarra. The fourth time I attempted to cross the border into Navarra from Orlais, I was turned back by chevaliers. I decided to take a more roundabout path. A ship back to Ferelden, then to another to Navarra. The outcome was more than worth the trouble. That's kind of interesting, because my understanding of like pre-modern borders is that there are official, you might have like official land titles or like treaties that such a state where boundaries are, and I might have boundary markers, but not under the impression that they controlled them like that. It wasn't like a thing where you had border guards to stop people from crossing. I think because, for one thing, it just wasn't practical to have, because the border was long, usually, and there were large sections that were not near roads that you could cross, get across relatively easily. That probably just wasn't really worth it. The whole country is filled with artistry, from the statues of heroes that litter the streets in even the meanest villages to the glittering golden college of the Magi in Cumberland. Perhaps nowhere is more astonishing than the vast necropolis outside Navarra city. Unlike most other followers of Andraste, the Navarrans do not burn their dead. Instead, they carefully preserve the bodies and seal them in elaborate tombs. Some of the wealthiest Navarrans began construction of their own tombs while quite young, and these become incredible palaces, complete with gardens, bathhouses, and ballrooms, utterly silent, kept only for the dead. From Pursuit of Knowledge, the Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genetivi. So, in a way, that does sound like the ancient tombs of like Egypt and other places. But there's also a thing of, at least with the Egyptian tombs, they were also temples and tended to also like have like kind of a community built around them, at least the earlier ones. It's not so much places where no one winter was, in any case. Alright, next thing, the Kunari. Anyone who travels far enough to the north will eventually encounter the Kunari, white-haired, bronze-skinned giants, a head taller than a man, and frighteningly calm demeanor, and a sort of sparkling fire behind their eyes. For a long time, people believed that all Kunari were male, or that their men and women were simply indistinguishable. It was not until the Blessed Age that diplomats from Ravane were allowed, however briefly, to visit Parvolin, where they discovered that Kunari females do exist in abundance, and are quite easily recognized. The Ravani say that Kunari have a certain kindness to them, or at least a conspicuous lack of cruelty, although I did not observe the creatures closely enough to evaluate the character from In Pursuit of Knowledge, the Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genetivi. So we have Flemeth. I think that's just... She was apparently slain by at Morgan's behest, at least apparently. Alright. This... Send their regards. Between the Twitter Imperium, Ravane, and the Free Marches sits the nation of Antiva, although it possesses few resources of its own. Antiva's location makes it a center for trade in the north, and the capital, Antiva City, is the wealthiest in the world. Antiva has virtually no army. The monarchy is too weak to support one. Most Antivans would be hard-pressed to even name the current king, as true power lies in the hands of a dozen merchant princes, each with a personal army, each locked in constant struggle for power against all the others. Anyone would think then that Antiva would be ripe for invasion by one of her neighbors, but even the Kunari leave Antiva alone for one very good reason. The House of Crows, the most efficient, most feared, and most expensive guild of assassins in the world, calls Antiva their home, and their reputation alone defends the borders. I highly doubt that. Severin was the crow contracted by Logain to assassinate Alistair and Duran. One failed attempt later, however, he found himself at the mercy of his would-be victims. They showed him unexpected mercy. In return, he swore to aid the Wardens on their quest to end the Blight. Severin has shown an affinity for finer things in life, hardly surprising from an Antivan crow, but his appreciation can be more poetic than he lets on. A simple bar of refined silver or gold, uncomplicated by a craftsman hammer, is elegantly valuable. Might be a suggestion as to what he likes as gifts. Books and songs. History of the Chantry, Chapter 4. The crowds present at the death of Andraste were right to feel despair. It is believed that the prophet's execution angered the Maker, and he turned his back on humanity once more, leaving the people of Thedas to suffer in the dark. In these dark times, mankind scrambled for a light, any light. Some found comfort in demonic cults that promised power and riches in return for worship. Others prayed to the old gods for forgiveness, begging the great dragons to return to the world. Still others fell so low as to worship the Darkspawn, forming vile cults dedicated to the exaltation of evil in its purest form. It is said that the world wept as its people begged for a savior who would not come. Andraste's followers, however, did not abandon her teachings when she died. The cult of Andraste rescued her sacred ashes from the courtyard of Minrathus after her execution, stealing them away to a sacred temple. The location of the temple has long been lost, but the ashes of Andraste served as a symbol of the enduring nature of the faith of the Maker. The humanity could earn the Maker's forgiveness despite its grievous insult to him. With time, the cult of Andraste spread and grew, and the chant of light took form. Sing this chant in the four corners of Thedas, it was said, and the world will again gain the Maker's attention at last. As the chant of light spread, the cult of Andraste became known as the Andrastian Chantry. Those who converted to the Chantry's beliefs found it their mission to spread Andraste's word. There were many converts, including powerful people in the Imperium and in the city-states of what is now Orlais. Such was the power of the Maker's word that the young King Drakon undertook a series of exalted marches meant to unite the city-states and created an empire solely dedicated to the Maker's will. The Orlesian Empire became the seat of the Chantry's power, the Grand Cathedral in Valgraio, the source of the movement that birthed and organized the Chantry as we know it today. Drakon, by then Emperor Drakon I, created the Circle of Magi, the Order of Templars, and the Holy Office of the Divine. Many within the Chantry revere him nearly as equal to Andraste herself. That's interesting. That doesn't seem to be borne out by the rest of the game I've played. Modern Chantry is a thing of faith and beauty, but is also a house of necessity, protecting Thedas from powerful forces that would do it harm. Where the Grey Wardens protect the world from the Blights, the Chantry protects mankind from itself. Right, of course. Most of all, the Chantry works to earn the Maker's forgiveness, so that one day he will return and transform the world into the paradise it was always meant to be. From Tales of the Destruction of Thedas by Brother and TV, a Chantry scholar. Yes, kind of sounds like they're creating a problem and then offering the solution to it. Quest related, what do we have? By order of Emir Thorogood. We know they're out there, and they will move when their fellow vermin call them out. Watch for the sign and slaughter the lot. They will know it is coming and probably abandon poor sap of a messenger. But even in that, our message will have been sent with an authority theirs cannot have. And that's it for this one. Thank you for watching, doing relevant things with YouTube's buttons, and have a nice day.